Texas reserves. The gentleman from Michigan, Massachusetts is recognized.
I reserve, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
I would just ask if the gentleman from Massachusetts has additional speakers. If not, I'm prepared to close.
We're prepared to close.
The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself the remaining time.
The gentleman is recognized.
So, Mr. Speaker, Democrats have had to make some tough decisions about how to vote on this rule. And let me tell you why I voted to support it last night. I have disagreements with many aspects of the various pieces of legislation that will come before us. And there are some of these pieces that I will vote against. But again, there will be separate votes and there'll be separate debates. But as we learned last night in the Rules Committee, the alternative that some of my Republican friends were pushing to this approach was an Israel-only package with no humanitarian aid, not just for the people of Gaza, but for any suffering people that the aid would benefit, and some really ugly border provisions, which I found unconscionable, and some other bad stuff as well. Democrats, once again, will be the adults in the room. And I'm so glad Republicans finally realize the gravity of this situation and the urgency with which we must act. But guess what, Mr. Speaker? You don't get an award around here for simply doing your damn job. President Biden told us last year, 6 months ago, over 6 months ago, that this was urgent and important, that Ukraine needed us, that Putin was not going to stop, that the war against the Ukrainians was particularly vicious. Every major human rights organization in the world has told us the impact of Russia's attack against Ukraine. The Senate voted months ago. The Senate can barely agree on what to have for lunch, and they voted months ago. And what did the House do? What did my House Republican friends do? Nothing. No action to help our allies. It's all delay, distract, deny, and blame Joe Biden. Now, I would just say to my colleagues, look at what MAGA extremism has gotten you. Nothing. Nothing. Not a damn thing. In fact, it has empowered Democrats at every critical juncture in this Congress. It has been Democrats who have been the ones to stand up for our country and do the right thing for the American people. Democrats ensured the U.S. didn't default on its debt last year, in case anybody forgot. Democrats supplied the votes to keep the government running in September of last year, in November of last year, and in March of this year. Democrats supplied the votes to pass the National Defense Authorization Act. Democrats supplied the votes for the tax relief bill that passed earlier this year. Democrats have done the job that Republicans have refused to do. And again, we have different priorities, and I think based on what I've heard in this last Congress, different values. And we don't even agree on a lot of what has come before the full House. But Democrats have done the job that Republicans have refused to do. And we don't want an award for it. We don't want a trophy for showing up to work. All we want is for Republicans to do their job, stop blaming Joe Biden for their own incompetence, and work with our side to find common ground. We are in a divided government. A Democrat is president, a democratically controlled Senate, and we have a narrow Republican majority here in the House. Nobody's going to get everything they want. We have to work together. We have to compromise. And I hope today's vote loosens the grip that MAGA extremism has on this body, and especially when it comes to supporting our allies. You know, the Rules Committee is the committee that has been known as a traffic cop of Congress. Every bill of consequence comes through the Rules Committee. I mean, we set the bills, for debate, set the bills for debate on the House floor. The last bill that the Rules Committee reported that actually became law was almost 10 months ago. All the other bills that we have sent that have been over to the White House, Senate and the White House to become law it had to be brought up under different processes and procedures. I mean, let that sink in. Something's not working here. And you either want to be a body that is constructive and that gets stuff done, or you just want to be, a party that just obstructs everything and gets nothing done. Because at the end of the day, there's nothing to show for all the yelling and screaming and finger pointing that we see on a regular basis on this House floor. My friends have to choose. History's going to judge them by how they answer one simple question. Are they going to work together with Democrats and, in this case, stand with our allies and stand for America? Or are they going to throw in their lot with MAGA, Trump, and Putin? We are living in very uncertain times, Mr. Speaker, and people around the world are counting on this country to stand up and lead. People in Ukraine, people in Taiwan, people in Gaza, people in Israel. The eyes of the world are on this body. There's a lot of things in this package I disagree with. And in my opening statement, I talked about my concern about the unconditioned aid package to Israel, which and my concern that Netanyahu's government is not moving in a direction that, quite frankly, is a direction that I think will lead to more security for Israel, but exactly the opposite. I worry that what he is doing is, quite frankly, a violation of the human rights of so many innocent people in Gaza and in the West Bank. I was hoping that they would pursue a different pathway, and instead we now hear that he wants to go into Rafah. There's a famine happening in Gaza. People are starving to death. Aid is being frustrated from getting there. Food, medicine, important supplies. People are dying. Surely we should all care about that. We should be able to advocate for Israel's security, but also advocate for the people of Gaza, children of Gaza, senior citizens, people who are just trying to get on with their lives. But notwithstanding that, notwithstanding the fact that we may have disagreed, and some of my Republican friends obviously disagree that we ought to be, whether we should be helping Ukraine or not. I disagree with you. Fine, but that we have a process that you will be able to vote on all of these things separately, and you'll be able to make your views clear. But I got to tell you, you don't have to agree on everything to agree on something. And we ought to agree that these issues are important enough to debate and to have up or down votes on. The people who are advocating that we do nothing, or that we attach things to this bill that will guarantee that it goes nowhere in the Senate, and therefore we help nobody, I don't understand why you're even here, quite frankly. We need to move this process forward. The House has to function. And as we've seen, under Republican control, that only happens when Democrats are the adults in the room. And I say that not to be partisan. I say that because that's what's been happening. I gave you a list of things that needed to be done, not just in terms of helping our allies, but in terms of saving our economy, that could not have been done unless Democrats stood up and behaved like adults. And this should have been dealt with a long time ago, months ago. But here we are. And so I hope that we proceed, that we have rational and thoughtful debate, knowing that we will have disagreements and knowing that some of us will have different ideas on how we should proceed forward. But this is the United States House of Representatives. We are supposed to debate issues. We are supposed to vote on things. And unfortunately, this has become a place where trivial issues get debated passionately and important ones not at all. Well, these are important issues that are in this bill. Again, some of them I agree with, some of them I don't agree with. But let's debate them, let's vote on them, and then let's move on. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Gentleman from Massachusetts yields back. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will yield myself the balance of our time.